from the Chai Network website as well. So just another quick update on that. So for any of you who are interested, this is being broadcast live through the Chai website. We'll go ahead. And we have about an hour for the next segment, which is our official, the next official item on the agenda, which is a curriculum section. This is where we wanted to start it. The day today is we don't have a lot of slides. We don't want to do any kind of necessary presentation. There are a few slides. It is primarily to offer a little bit of structure to our discussion. But what we want this to be is hear more about your programs and how you're doing it. Many of you share details about how you're doing it, but now we want to focus it a little bit more on specific areas. So just so we have a little bit of a heads up on what's to come. So for the next hour, we'll focus mostly on curriculum, and we want to get do a little bit more of a deeper understanding of what curriculum you're using. We have heard a little bit of that already. What might be some of the materials you're using, what might be, and what kind of patterns it's showing us. You know, we heard that some curriculum is ad hoc and on a topic approach, and others might be a lot more structured, using phone video or others. So we want to talk about this more the curriculum focus. So then after, I think from 12 to the next segment is strengths and weaknesses. So in strengths and weaknesses, we will have an opportunity to talk about pretty much any topic under the umbrella. So keep that in the back of your mind, because we don't want to necessarily derail too much from what we want to talk for the next hour, but we'll have an opportunity to talk about things that are working for you and things that are not necessarily working as well, and how we can learn from how everybody is doing a cultural show for 800 people. So there are lots of strengths and weaknesses that we can probably learn more from each other. And so that would be a good segment, because again, from a topic perspective, it's wide open. It can be anything about administration, it can be cultural aspect, it can be parent. Well, we have a specific topic focused on parent involvement, so we do want to focus on that during that segment after that. So, is everyone okay, or do we need to take a quick fresh break?
A question on that. I guess our I was wondering.
Not everybody can hear.
No, I just have a question for
from
a book housekeeping. Are we is somebody keeping notes on this? Are we
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're taking notes, and we actually have some notes from the last conference as well that was done in New Jersey, and we intend to post that stuff.
Well, also, everything is being recorded as well.
We're live streaming all of this right now, and as it's live streaming, it's also recording. So
the conference is being recorded as well, a full recording. Okay, very well. Any other kind of logistical or any other questions before we start talking about more about curriculum?
Yes, I guess the curriculum strengths and weaknesses is combined. That way, as we are talking about what to teach, what are the challenges we are facing, that way too, we are already
Yeah.
segment. So
Right. Good point. So for the curriculum portion of the agenda and for the parent involvement portion of the agenda, because they are focused on those two topics, any strengths and weaknesses related that you want to discuss specific to those two items can be covered during that agenda item. Very good point. So, sure. So, all right. So when we talk about curriculum, I think I have a couple of slides that we can pull up. That's here, right? Yeah. So we can go to the next chart. We'll put together. So we can go to the next chart. So I think the way we'll organize the next hour is look at the goals of curriculum. These are the curriculum goals that we have. But again, they are fairly broad, and we already know that many of these things, we are all really aiming at the same objectives. Talk about structural materials. What are the key components of the curriculum that we want to talk about? And then what is a are we interested in putting together a paradigm around our And this does not mean there is no intent whatsoever here to standardize curriculum. We know that that's not possible. We know that that's not needed. There's no point in trying to standardize curriculum, but it needs to be tailored to individual organizations, groups, and the local units, if you will, across the country. But are there certain components that need to be a common denominator, a common foundation? And can we agree on what that is? Because there are a lot of different, from what we heard at the last conference and with all the representation that we have here, I'm sure there are so many different aspects of the curriculum that we see together. But what portions of this need to be more core? And maybe the core parts need to be the common foundation across the country. Is it not? There is no set agenda here, or there is no, there's not an end state in mind. The idea is for us to interact so we can decide things. Are there any questions? Okay, so the next question. So these are the curriculum goals, and I sent out the PowerPoint presentation to folks on the phone. If you would like to pull up the slides, you'll be able to see I'm on slide 3 of the curriculum. So these are some of the broad curriculum goals that we have as part of our local program that we are running. Facilitating children to appreciate, learn, and practice in good learning. I don't think we could argue with that, right? I don't know if any of us could necessarily argue with any of the bullet points here. Instill pride and confidence in Hindu children. Expose them to aspects of their spirit, presence, and stories. Reinforce concepts for pre-Prarantika children. So we have children here starting at the age of 3. And so the little kids, the little toddlers from 3 to 5, roughly 5 and a half, those are the ones we call pre-Prarantika. So how do we help them, and what are some of the things that we can do for these little ones that can be perhaps leveraged by others? Reinforce concepts for Prarantika and Lasimata. This is essentially from age 5 through all the way Mathema is right around 10 or 12 years old. Alright, so second last bullet, develop students' leadership skills and sense of community. So we are offering a sense of community. Some of that leadership really transitions to one of the objectives that was mentioned here. The age group from 18 to 25. What might be some of the leadership skills that can be instilled or started and build confidence early on from in the time leading up to the teenage years that can really translate and flourish, if you will, between the age group of 18 to 25 and then translate into your professional life as well. And then provide a social and family circle for academic teens and young adults to help in meeting their passion. So, what are some thoughts on these goals? Is there anything that is like blatantly missing? It's a fairly generic and broad. I think we have mics all the way around the table, so please feel free. Someone give me a slide. Any comments or thoughts or anything that you would like to add?
The idea of this conference is not to show down what we have curriculum goals, but we definitely want to check with each one of you to really cross-check, double-check, whatever we're missing, we want to fill it from your side, and of course you're free to take whatever we are putting in there. So active participation is definitely encouraged and commenting as well as criticizing that we.
I'm sure we'll get on track with one of our job facilitators also. But I mean, I think it's important to have a common understanding of our goals, right? So before we get to the fourth point. So that's obviously the purpose of this slide. So is there should I say that this fairly represents for the most part what we are looking from our kids? Did you have something to say?
We have this always ongoing discussion with parents that is it working?
Now we will break it? Yes. With the parents, we have a lot of requests for the engagement and dance and music and other level of culture. different. Our program is very much emphasis only on religion. And we have 5 groups that are, PPs are Ashkazi. They are linked to the 5-hour basic elements that religion process. Our program is introduction to gods, Mahabharata, Ramayana, and then Hindu values, Sanatana Dharma, then the past life, and then the Hindu principles. That's how it goes. But we don't have enough time to add the languages and everything else, because we have so much in Hinduism to offer. So I don't know if any one of you are also adding these cultural aspects, because I haven't been able to, because we only said, okay, we are only going to emphasize on, because there are private classes for Hindi and Gujarati and the dances. How many of you really accommodate everything which we haven't been able to? Yeah, and that's consistent with some of our challenges as well. And we touch on cultural, we got the ethnic side, the religious side, and then we started some language. So I'm sure there are some similar kind of concerns and issues there. And I think I will actually get to the individual components of the curriculum. Language is certainly one of it. I wanted to make sure we had a common foundation of what are we trying to achieve with that curriculum. And hopefully that's represented here very well.
I was agreeing with Lataji over there. I apologize. Because what happens is it becomes difficult, like you said. If you want to give them what we think is the creed, love of God, who God is, who I am, and what my relationship with Him is. Because in that moment of helplessness, everybody has it, that you need to understand what your resources are and how tremendous your resources are. So I agree with all of this, but at the same time I also agree with you that it's difficult to incorporate the dancing, the cultural aspect, and we have also decided that that is being very much taken care of by the rest of society. But this particular aspect, which I think as growing up here was the most prominent thing that I desperately needed, and now I understand to some little bit that that's the one that saves you.
Okay, so in terms of, let's just talk a little bit.
One of the things which is evolving in this country is what is the role of temples in educating our young children. And if you look at not Hinduism as a religion, but more as Sanatana Dharma, then we don't have to define our faith within the context of the Abrahamic religions. In our faith, we have the art and culture and devotion to God are intertwined. And it is very difficult at times which part of this do you cater to. And children being small, we cannot overload them. So it naturally, over the years, different groups have emphasized a certain segment to make it relevant and palatable for the small children. With time, I anticipate we will be a bit more organized in the sense that we have paid teachers and we have a more structured program for it to last over a longer period of time and evolve and sustain. And I've been in this country for 43 years, and when my kids were small, none of this existed. So they really grew up without any government. But in the last 25 years, things have changed. So one of the things I can suggest is to, in each region, different organizations have come about. For example, in this area, we have India International School, which has over 400 kids, and they cater to everything other than Sanatana, all culture, languages, dances, and so on. Whereas in our temple, as you know, we have a very strong program, and many other temples here, very strong Hindu-based teaching. And many temples have, of course, cultural teaching as well. So it's based on the people in that region and the motivation of the volunteers who came forward and just continue to do it.
Okay, so I want to move our discussion forward to just to some of the current.
I was just waiting for other groups. I was just waiting for other groups to say their piece before I wanted to give our perspective. As far as I know, ours is the only group that has students from 2.5 years to 3 years in one class. Party is not our choice. We got a place. As I said, I started to tell you about what happened when we grew and we wanted to divide by 8 groups and rent the place and there's cost involved. I said I'll do it in my basement. But then in my basement there's only one class. We don't have a lot of space for different classes. So our systems and methods evolved essentially because of the challenges we face. So how do we keep the interest of all these children and each one learn something? It's not only the age variation, talent variation. Some of the children are very talented and they're very anxious. Some of them are not. Some of them are slow learners. Some of the parents are more anxious than their children and they want to showcase their child rather than everybody else. So all of these challenges were there. That is why I was saying that we discuss our challenges. And how we face it, not necessarily the perfect way. Because of the challenges, we evolved our systems. So we don't have a curriculum. Because curriculum means it is addressed to a particular age group. And we don't have a curriculum. We have, in the first slide which is there, to teach Hinduism and to convey our values. That is our basic objective. So how do we do it to such a large group? So we do by projects. For example, to keep everybody's interest, right now we will be getting them ready for youth competitions coming in July. And youth competitions have competitions from different age groups again, from pre-elementary up to high school level. So each one of them has a recitation piece, comes from the Vivekananda, Chennayananda, one of the great speakers, and they have to render like Chennayananda, Vivekananda. So we train them. And some of the older children can train the younger children. So that way everybody is involved and everybody's interest is kept. And similarly, then after that we have Ganesh Puja. In Ganesh Puja, every child will have a speaking role. And every child will explain something connected with the puja. So some of you mentioned, how do we tell them what the puja means? We don't tell them, we teach them, but they will tell you. And Ganesh Puja day, if you come here, no adult is allowed on the stage. We train the children to explain what is Shorashopachara Puja, what is Jhanam, what is Avahanam, and what is Mantra Pushpam, what is the meaning of Mantra Pushpam, what they will decide the whole Mantra Pushpam. Everything they do, but we train them behind the scenes for 2 months. So everybody is focused on that. So we focus on projects. And also we involve children. As you might have noticed when they did the invocation, I asked 3 children to explain the meaning of it. So I have an agenda, they don't know the agenda. The agenda is to make the child bold enough to speak in front of youth. And so they are very happy to do that. They are not self-conscious. And if they do 2-3 times, by the time they are self-conscious, they already know how to speak in front of groups. So that is my secret agenda and my secret curriculum. And that's how we teach. And similarly, for the last 2 weeks, we have been making children to come and present a formal presentation on the life of a great personality. So some child spoke about Mother Teresa. Again, I have a secret agenda. The child herself will not prepare. The parents have to work with the child. That is the idea. It's not just that 1 hour they spend on Sundays, but at home they talk to the parents. Or tell me it's not a problem, will not be unhappy when I explain. So the parents are involved. So our systems developed not because of any great wisdom, but because we had challenges to face. And similarly, for example, somebody talked about bands and culture. A few years ago, suddenly out of the blue, Suva Hospital called me and said, "I want you to give a talk on Bhagavad Gita." I said, "Why me? A lot of Swamitis are there." And no, we want your perspective because you're an old teacher. So I said, okay, if you allow me to bring my children, I will do it. They said, what will children know about Bhagavad Gita? I said, give it to me. So in my speaking, we trained the children to put on a whole drama with 7 scenes, with chariot, with kingdom, everything. They prepared the whole drama, and somebody, one of the parents wrote the drama, actually, Teja's father wrote the drama, along with another lady, and they trained the children, they directed them, they prepared them. One of the wonderful shows that was shown at Service to People was this Bhagavad Gita, done by children from 5 years to 15 years. In preparing that, we spent 2 3 months. So, that is how we, in response to challenges we faced, we evolved our system. Similarly, for example, somebody talked about leadership skills. That is leadership skills. When they come and talk in front of the people, they get leadership skills. And for Ganesh Puja, for example, about a dozen children will be involved in speaking roles. And the 2 important roles are to be the master of ceremonies. Every year there is competition for the master of ceremonies. So they want to be master of ceremonies. So if there is more than one child interested, then they have to give a campaign speech on why they should be the master of ceremony, and all the children vote. And 30 years of teaching children's classes, I never designated except you baby should do that. If there is a competition, children will vote among themselves. So they have to convince other children why they should be the leader. Like that, we evolve all these systems essentially as response to what we need to our challenges. For example, we also had watched Gandhi movie in 15-minute segments in over 10-15 classes. Each time we show 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and then we discuss what we saw. And everybody has an opinion. So, like that they learn. How much Chitrakalas we presented, cartoons we present. And in a typical class like Srinivas said, we have no curriculum. We looked at our curriculum and we looked at the Bhavira curriculum. They are all very structured. For our class, that structure won't help because we have a large age variation and talent variation. So of course, we respect all these curriculum that are developed by great people with a lot of experience. Ours is the only chaotic class. But somehow people seem to be interested. We have 40 children and their parents, their sons. Probably the secret of the class and the popularity is it is cheap. There is no cost. We don't charge anything for any of our activities. Even the competitions where we give out trophies, we don't charge any entrance fees. Almost anywhere, any activity in this area, if it is sloka recital or if it is Gita chanting competition, you have to pay $20, $25, and then the whole lot. We never ask for money for anything we do. For 30 years I have taught children, never asked for a single penny. So people are worried when they go to these classes, or our uncle will ask for another money for something. Everybody knows our uncle doesn't ask for money. That's a very good question. We have enough money that we need. People come and give me the rest. And again, if they expect me to announce that so-and-so gave $1,000 donation, I don't need their check. It should be quiet donation. We have an account. For many years I paid out of my pocket. Then my 60th birthday, a lot of people got together and did the function here. We said no gifts, but we will give a check to Bharat class. There was enough money. We created a bank account on my 60th birthday. Now I'm 71 years old. On my 70th birthday, we did the same thing. So we have a bank account. We have money. Now we are running a large project in India where we transferred about $110,000. Nobody was asked for any money. Money comes.
Money will come in the following year.
My feeling is that money should not be the entrance to any of our activities. That is what the reason why even though I started Balvihar, I did not stay with it. Because the moment they started charging money, $5, $10, whatever it is, I thought it would dilute our, we will become commercial. We will look for people, the man who pays more money, his children require more attention. In our time, there is no such thing.
No, thank you for your perspective, very much, because I think at the end of the day, we know that there is a wide variety of scale. I think I have to, right, Vivian? The curriculum portion.
Can I talk about
Okay, I think we'll have to go a little bit beyond that. Because,
challenges
no, we are, but.
Would you like to know about could I share the Chinmaya curriculum?
Absolutely, and that's where I want to really take the conversation, because I just wanted to comment that there is a wide variety of scale here. And at the end of the day, depending on, if you are constrained by your resources and the infrastructure, and the goals and the objectives oftentimes morph, and they evolve based on what you have to live with. There is no one way that is good or bad necessarily, but it certainly becomes effective at different levels. To me, one of the things that I have heard is great here is the relationships that you form and the continuity that comes from the relationships that you build, whether it's with parents or students, and the sense of community that you can have with a group of perhaps 40 or 60 kids is never going to be the same, never, with a group of 200 kids. You cannot, while you're still working towards the similar goals that we talked about earlier, you cannot compare the two side by side. They are apples and oranges in some respect. So there is a diversity here of obviously different scale at which operations are running towards the goals that we talked about earlier. But bringing it back to the curriculum components, and hopefully we can talk through these, some of the things that I heard you say, regardless of how we do it, we are touching on obviously the religious aspects, the scriptures and things like that. We are touching on perhaps language. We all think that language is important. We're touching on language. We're touching on obviously history. I think when you speak about we are touching on history. So history, language, religion through our scriptures, our Ramayana and Mahabharata, and all of these different, our Qurans. What are the other big components of curriculum that we absolutely feel? Because there is no way we are going to be able to get, the combination at an optimal level that we need in every area. So I think that keep that in mind, and I know this is an important discussion, so we can take another 20 minutes, and I'd like to hear from everybody, so we can keep your kind of comments more focused to that.
Also,
Chinmaya mentioned it.
next session is strength and weaknesses.
The weaknesses is what involves the whole country.
Yeah, there can be strengths and weaknesses outside of just the curriculum topic, which we also want to talk about. So, okay, please go ahead.
I think trying to marshal my thoughts. It's a very wide range of thoughts that we're trying to put together. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So first of all, the Balayu had a very powerful program. Many of us have very illustrious programs out here. Chinmaya Mission, I came from the Balayu program, so it's very personal to me. Swami Chinmayananda actually started the Balayu program, I think the vision of the Balayu program was 60 years back, and it's probably a worldwide program all over the world. It is fairly well established, so I don't really have to talk about the curriculum. Most of you already know about it, and now it's also very well established. Many other programs, the Bala Gokulam is there, Bala Vikas is there, there are various forms of it around. The curriculum we follow is the Chinmaya Balayu program itself, which is our own curriculum. I'm not going to talk too much about the specific curriculum itself, except the fact that it is a structured program. We run it essentially like a school.
So what might be the 5 core components of the curriculum, or 3 or 2?
The curriculum in the US, the way we run it is different from it. Essentially, if I have talked about the Balayu program in the US, it's different from the Balayu program in India. That's the number one point I want to make across. Most of us who come from India we're used to the way Balaviharas is run in India, and we come with the mentality of how it's run in India. We have to start thinking about the way children are brought up in this country, and we have to set it up for children who are brought up in this country. So the Balavihar curriculum that is structured, at least the senior Balavihar program here, is written with the mindset for the American Indian children. So with that in mind, it's a combination of both, a combination of our, whatever you have out there, but it's also imparting Western values to its culture.
Do you have history as part of your structural curriculum?
Not necessarily, not from that perspective. It's really how to make them successful in this country. So it's not really studying about Western culture, but essentially how do you essentially some of the aspects that she talked about. Like you take a topic like Vibhishana Gita, for instance. You can take some of the aspects of take Vibhishana Gita as a very good example. You can take aspects of that text and impart that in the Western context. So it's really taking the essentials and translating it in the Western